It looked like a dog, you know. They call it like the dog man or something. I mean, this thing was built. I mean, this thing was rugged. I mean, it's something I wouldn't want to tangle with it, you know.
One night, I'm sitting there and I had a dead body in my bed.
Yes, that's when I started hearing the doors opening and closing and them walking through the house.
Giant ruby-looking thing appeared in front of me. Then one next to it. Then a third next to it. The third one opened up a porthole in my room.
Hello, everyone. This is John Methenkamp. Let's take a moment to thank the constant listeners for being so supportive. And if you're new to the show, I hope you enjoy your time with me. Okay, so I'm no Lafayette Faust, but welcome to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I am your host, John Methenkamp. If you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. Or you can join the live on TikTok by searching for john.c.h.methenkamp, and join the live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Tonight on the show, we have Alan, also known as Lafayette Faust, from the Nevermore Hollows podcast. And if you've watched my show or listened to it, you know that I am a huge fan of Nevermore Hollows. And I was honored to have him come into my live twice to tell his own paranormal encounters. So in the words of Lafayette Faust, I invite you to sit back, turn on the light, and prepare yourself. Alan, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, brother, what you up to?
Oh, you see it. Been chatting with you all day, and then I had to come on here and do this.
Right. I feel you. Well, look, man, I really appreciate you, and excuse me, inviting me and Chris on here, and saying nice things about the show. It means a lot to us, brother.
Hey, no problem, man. I love the show, and this is I want everybody that's in here, all 8, to go ahead and follow Nevermore Hollows, and you've got to check them out. I listen to them on Spotify, but Alan, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about Nevermore Hollows?
All righty. Well, I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet everybody. My name is Alan, and I got my partner in crime here, Chris, Madman Goins, and we have a podcast called Nevermore Hollows where we write and record horror stories set in a little fictitious town called Nevermore Hollows, Georgia. And we write, it's got a cast of recurring characters that we draw from. Some of the people, kind of like people we know, but some of the people are just totally made up. And we have a lot of different kinds of monsters and cryptids and spooky stuff that happen in that town. And we'd appreciate it if you check us out. But anyway, thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that, John.
Oh, no problem, man. Like I said, I love the show. I ran into these guys up at Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree in Ada, Ohio, back at the beginning of October. And I think I took a business card or something, and it took me a week or two to actually check them out. And dude, I have been hooked. Like that's all I do on my way to work and home from work is. Yeah, this is my life goal. That's what that was.
Yay!
So I got one gift and I reached my goal. So, we really need to get you and Chris 500 followers so you guys can go live and maybe we can work on something together.
Oh, yeah. Look, you and I have been texting back and forth a lot, and I know you and Chris have been texting back and forth a lot too. We're definitely gonna have you on our show because we do our main focus is the stories, but we've started a couple of different series where we interview people that have had paranormal experiences or experiences with cryptids. So that's a series that we started a couple months ago, and that series is doing really well for us. And that's open to anybody, kind of like what you're doing here. if you listen to the show, there's a way to get in touch with us. You can reach out to us, and we can schedule a time to talk to you. But definitely going to do some stuff with you on our show, Brother John. And yeah, when Chris and I get to 500, we're on your show whenever we can get on your show, brother.
You got open invitation.
Excellent, thank you.
Do you have any paranormal encounters yourself?
Oh, got plenty, plenty. So I would be curious. I'll put this out there. I'll tell one, and then I'll put this out to the folks that are listening. One of the questions that Chris and I are always asking people is, the vast majority of people refuse to accept the fact that there's a paranormal realm. And if something paranormal happens, they try to explain it away. And so Chris and I ask this question all the time. Do we think that folks like us who have had paranormal experiences, do we have them because we're open to the concept? So we're not closed off, so we happen to see things and experience things that others won't because they're closed off. I'd be curious to know what you folks think about that. But
personally,
I'll tell you. Yeah, I think so too, Brother John. I think the more open you are to it, the more you're going to see. So anyway, I'll tell you guys a story that kind of, I'm a horror fan. I love reading horror. I love watching horror. I love writing horror. I love telling stories, hearing stories, sharing stories. But one of the things that kind of got me into it is I live in Tennessee. Actually, I'm practically neighbors with Brother Chris. And but when I was young, I lived in a small town called Englewood, Tennessee. And there may be, if there's 1,000 people in that town, I'd be surprised. I mean, it's literally teeny tiny. And a lot of the homes there are 100 years old or more. Still has that kind of Mayberry feel. So when I was 8 years old or so, and I have a younger brother and sister, we moved into this house, and it kind of had elements of a Victorian style house. It had kind of that look, but it wasn't. It had the wraparound porch. It had upstairs, downstairs, and it had an unfinished attic that was just massive. And then it had an unfinished basement. So we move into this house, and immediately weird things start happening. For example, we had some folks over one night. It was just aunts and uncles and stuff, and all the adults were sitting in the front room. There was, like, when you walked in off the porch, there was this small sitting room. Then there was a bigger room where the bedrooms and the kitchen opened off of. Okay, and there were 3 bedrooms. And there was a kitchen. So all the adults were in the sitting room, just shooting the breeze. And I went into the kitchen to get something to drink. I think it was like a Sprite or whatever. Open up the refrigerator. I step out. There's only one way in the kitchen, one way out of the kitchen. As I step out of the kitchen, my mom yells at me, says, "Hey, will you bring me a cup of coffee?" Now, when I was in the kitchen just a second earlier, when I say I left the kitchen, I'm basically just took a step through the doorway, right? So there's nobody has come in or out. I'm right there in front of the door. When I was in there getting my drink, there were 6 or so coffee cups, and they were all set up, ready to pour. I turned back around, no coffee cups. They are all gone. Not a coffee cup there. So I turned back around. I'm like, okay, I'm 8 or 9 years old. Maybe I don't know. I'm not paying attention, right? So I said, "Mom, where are the coffee cups?" And she says, "They're beside the coffee pot." I turn back around. There are the coffee cups.
Oh, wow.
So,
Alan, can you see the comments right now?
I can't. Wow. Oh, I hear the accent. Yeah, that accent. Yeehaw! I'm Southern.
Don't
So, but the thing is that was the first time that I had ever remembered experiencing something personally that, those cups were there, they were not there, then they were there. And we lived in that home. We lived in it less than a year, brother. And strange things were happening in that house. My dad was a Vietnam vet. He was a no BS kind of guy, right? He didn't fool around. And I heard him one night, he was talking to my uncle, and he was like, I'm telling you, I'm hearing footsteps in the middle of the night walking through the house. And my uncle was like, well, Sam, you're crazy. You're losing your mind. You're not the guy, you're not the guy that believes in that stuff. So over a period of weeks, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would see my dad standing in the doorway of the bedroom. And what he was doing is he was following those footsteps through the house. And they always went to mine and my brother's bedroom. And my brother was, a year and a half younger than me. So he's 6, right? Never before or never since did he do any type of sleepwalking or anything like that. But he started talking in his sleep. And the spooky thing is I would wake up in the middle of the night and he would just be standing in his bed, standing in the middle of his bed, eyes closed, in the dark, and he would just be staring at me. And I would go, Andy, are you okay? And he would just stare at me.
That is creepy.
Right. So this house, there was other things. There's all kinds of crazy things that happen. And Chris and I have and my sister, experienced some of this too, even though she was very young at the time. But we've got a video on our YouTube channel where we go a little bit deeper. But I'll tell you this, then I'll shut up. Right. So this is kind of how my love of horror started. Right. I was experiencing these things. I wanted to know more. So as I started digging into this stuff, I was getting deeper into the, understanding what all that was happening. And that led me to a love of horror. But there was this one night, or it was this one afternoon. I'm sitting in the floor with my brother, and we're playing with little, Hot Wheels and whatnot. My sister's sitting over there, and she's playing with her dolls. And my mother, she comes through, and she's got some things in a clothes basket that she's getting ready to take up to the attic. Okay, now this attic it had just a little thin door because it was an older home. So you can imagine back when they used to make homes, the stairs were always narrower, and just things like that. So she was going to open up the door and walk up the stairs into the unfinished attic. When she opens up the door, a crow flies out and gets stuck in her hair, is squawking and flapping, making all sorts of noise. Me, my brother, my sister, we run out into the yard. My mother gets the crow out of her hair. She runs out into the yard. By that weekend, we had moved out of the home. There was just too much strange stuff going on.
Holy cow. That is amazing. I don't really want a crow flying in my hair, but that is amazing. How is Michelle related to you?
She's my sister. Michelle is my sister.
Okay, she's in here commenting, and she is acknowledging and backing up everything you're saying right now. So,
oh, I see her. Yes, I see her. So yeah, I've got you on my phone, and I'm new to TikTok, so I'm having trouble reading stuff and seeing stuff. Hey, sis.
I haven't stalked you that much that I know your entire family. So that's
I was like, how do you know my sister, dude?
I'm like the CIA, dude. I really am.
Right. So I got to ask you, John, what were you just drinking in that bottle? What were you drinking?
It's a virgin screwdriver.
Oh, okay. So I drink screwdrivers too, but I also have an energy drink that I mix with water that look very similar. I was wondering if that's what you were drinking.
This one's from it's the Walmart brand. It's just called Orange Blast or something like that.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, anyway, so there we go. That's an introduction to how I got into horror. And my sister, I'll tell you this. My sister, there's a character in Nevermore Hollows based off my sister called Alyssa Hart. She's the coroner, and whenever crazy stuff happens in the town, she's the one that has to come in and clean up the bodies or the bodies of the monsters. And we've got a series that's going to be coming out in early 2025 where she's just going to be going through there, and there are going to be short videos of her talking about kind of like doing an autopsy. Like, she's going to be going, this is Alyssa Hart. I'm doing an on the table tonight. I have this creature, and she's going to explain it and kind of go through what that is and how it fits into the Nevermore Hollows stories.
Dude, I don't care what you're doing. I don't know where you're getting your ideas, but I hope that well is deep, and they keep coming, man, because I absolutely love the show.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I need
All righty.
everybody to follow Nevermore Hollows, find them on your favorite podcast player, and tell them John sent you.
Awesome. We appreciate that, Brother John.
All right, man. I'll text you later.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. So the second time Alan comes in, you can tell that we've gotten a little more comfortable with each other, and we let loose a little bit during our conversation. But he had an awesome orb story, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Alan, how long are you going to be in here? I want to make sure if you're, I know you got early because, you know, you're fragile like that. All right, let's get Alan real quick before he has to go to bed. Alan's normally at a basketball game or getting ready for bed at this time. So.
Yeah, I'm old. So, how you doing, Brother Cougar?
All right. Are you in your pajamas yet?
I am sitting literally. Okay, I'm sitting in the bed. I'm covered up. And I'm watching the best live stream in the internet at the moment.
I knew it. Because it seems like every time I text you after about 7 o'clock, it's like, well, I'm either at a basketball game or you're in bed. So
yeah, I sound like I'm 100 years old. I know, but man, I'm an early riser, and you know, I'm a very we're all busy, right? We're all doing stuff, right? So, my wife, she makes fun of me, calling me an old man all the time.
So, Alan, I heard, because you know I'm almost caught up now.
Yeah,
I heard about this orb story.
Yeah. So first, I'll tell that. First, I want to say a couple of things. One, Chris is very kind. You know, he's my brother. I've known him for 30 years, and God put us together here. You know, a couple of years ago, after life gets in the way, and you just kind of drift apart. But he sells himself short. He likes to push Nevermore more than he pushes himself, and he is my partner in crime in this, and I appreciate that he's doing that. But he is an amazing artist, and that's how I say it is. I literally, for that week, there was a week. My son's an artist, and I'd asked him to be my art director, and he was like, "Man, I want to do my own thing." I'm like, "I got you, son. That's cool. I'm digging it." And I was like, "Lord, I need an art director." And Chris calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, man, let's go have some tacos." And we sit down, and he's got all these character sketches, and I'm like, "Well, how much do I owe you?" He goes, "Man, I just want to be part of what you're doing." And I went, "Well, you know what? This is a God thing, so you're part of it now." So anyway, so check out Chris's art. But the second thing I want to say before I get into this story is, as I told you, I don't know if I said it on the last live stream I was on, but I spent the '90s as a stand-up comedian traveling the country. Okay, so I've written my share of comedy, and I have bombed many times on stage. As you're working through characters and stuff like that, dude, your character rocks, and the way you present him, like what Chris was saying, that dry just delivery, you're totally in a character. It's like you're in on it, and everybody else has to be in on it too. It's brilliant. Some of your lines are just, I sometimes I get so tickled. I am rolling, and I'm showing it to my wife, and I'm showing it to my son. I'm like, listen to what he just said. So well done, brother. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And actually, what I did tonight, this live is not about paranormal. It's all about people coming in and talking about how great I am.
Right?
No, I do appreciate it.
So good. Yeah, good. Well, you deserve it. I mean, because you see a lot of folks on the internet. I think I'm having some technical difficulties. Hang on a second.
All right.
But you hear a lot of times on on TikTok and whatnot. You see these guys and girls trying to create characters, and they don't quite pull it off, or I don't know. There's just something missing. You've got it, but that's fun. So all right. So this orb story. All right. So there's actually two that I've told before. Which one are you talking about?
With the car and the curve.
Okay, excellent. All right, that's a good one. All right, so I was a young man, and I was probably 18, 19, something like that. I was young, and I worked in a city that was about 30 minutes away from the city I lived in, and this is 30 years ago, so it's very rural. Still, I mean, it's still fairly rural around here, but not as much as it was. And so I had a little yellow 1970 Volkswagen Beetle that I would drive back and forth. And I tricked up this Volkswagen Beetle to where, I mean, still it's a Beetle. You can trick it out all you can, and you get what? You get from 60 to maybe 65 miles an hour at its top speed. But anyway, I had it tricked out, right? And I would drive this thing like I was in a race all the time. So there was this back road that, and Chris knows this back road well. When we filmed the episode for Nevermore Hollows, we actually drove on that road when I told the story at night. It was really cool. So we would drive on this road, and it was a very curvy road out in the middle of nowhere. And about halfway down this road, or maybe 10 miles of road, about halfway down was this very sharp curve. And so the story was, there's always a story of 20 years ago, right? Especially when you're in a small town. When I was young, the story was 20 years ago there was this guy that was he was he had a wreck, and that or as he was coming around the curve, there was a wreck there, and they had were pulling the car out of the ditch, and he had a wreck, and as they were pulling the car out of the ditch, he loses his head, kind of thing, right? So no, none of us ever, it's just a story we used to tell. And so one night, it's late. I'm coming home from work, and I'm hammered down in this Volkswagen, and there's no light. It's we're out in the middle of nowhere. It's farmland, and I catch this gleam out of the corner of my eye, on my left eye, and I'm like, what is that? And I kind of look out, and as I'm doing this, I'm slowing down, and I'm like, there's a light, and it's kind of like what like today, almost like a light was on under my car. So I slowed. By this time, I've slowed down quite drastically, and I roll down the window, and I look out, and about 6 or 8 inches from the rear wheel is this small glowing orb about the size of maybe a golf ball. It was kind of hard to tell. And it was kind of pulsating a little bit. So at times it looked about the size of a softball, and it's just keeping perfect speed with me. So I slow way down. I'm trying to figure out, what is this thing, right? And we get close to the curb, and it just shoots away. And I'm like, holy moly, right? I'm like, that nobody's ever going to believe this story. So I come around the curve, and there's been a wreck, and they are trying to pull this guy out of the ditch, and they've got a chain across the road as they're trying to pull him out. Had I not slowed down, I would have hit that wreck. I would have T-boned this guy when I came around, because he was just there in the middle of the road as they were pulling him out, and I could have died. So upon reflection of that, you think something was slowing me down so that when I came around that curve, I was at a controllable speed.
Right.
So this orb though, was it like, did it have a form or was it just a light?
No, it was spherical, perfectly spherical.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that might have been, I mean, an angelic spirit or something, you know.
hmm
That's
And Chris and I have talked about it before. I've talked about it with my son, and we all are open to the idea of the paranormal, right? That's why we're having these conversations. But we also try to approach it with skepticism. Okay, can it be explained? Or there's no way that this can be explained. So
right.
could it be? Could it have been some sort of angelic spirit that was trying to slow me down, so that maybe someday I could meet the cougar hunter?
It was fake, man. That was the spirit of cicada meth in camp. My dad, you
That's
know,
right.
he only shows up every 17 years and makes a lot of noise and then disappears again.
That's hysterical. That is hysterical.
I didn't go through the whole thing because I don't want my live to get shut down. So I'm like you though, because I haven't told you my paranormal story. We're going to talk about that soon. Um, when we went on this ghost hunt, I went in as a skeptic. You know, I was there. I was there to debunk everything that everybody saw, and you know, there were a lot of things that people saw, and I was like, no, that fan up there making that noise, or
Right.
you know, that's somebody walking around upstairs. We know there's people up there. So yeah, you have to be skeptical. You can't just go in and say everything I see is paranormal, everything I hear is Bigfoot. You know, you've got to be skeptical, or you're not being honest about this. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. Because that way you're being disingenuous, and you want to be the type of person to where you're open to the idea of it, but you're skeptical enough that when you do have these conversations, you're believable.
Right. Right. Yeah, because you listen to some of these guys, and you know they get into a certain train of thought, and everywhere they look it's Bigfoot, or
Yeah.
it's orbs, or it's whatever, you know. But that's what they're looking for, so that's what they see. You know,
Right.
if you're that's why I don't like some of these Bigfoot shows. You
hmm
know, I did like um, what was the like the original one, Finding Bigfoot. I
Right.
did that show up until a certain point, because I honestly think that maybe they found something, and the creators or the producers were like, we can't show that, because if we show that, we don't have a show anymore.
Right.
You know, so I think at a certain point, some of these shows, they run out of steam, not because there's nothing to show. It's if they do show what they have, don't have a show.
Right.
Does that make
Yep.
sense? Or
Oh
am I
yeah.
just talking?
No.
Is that
No.
mouth diarrhea? I get that sometimes.
Well, look, you and my wife. My wife says I have that all the time.
I won't tell you what my wife says about me.
So
It's
that's
not.
why. Right. I think that's why we're long lost brothers, man. I'm telling you. But yeah,
Well,
but in that situation where I came around that curve and that car was, you know, I later found out that he had wrecked. But when I first rounded that curve, it looked like it was just broken down and people were trying to help him. But either way, when I look back on those moments and I go, I'm glad whatever it was, I'm glad it was there. I'm glad I had that experience, so it helped open my eyes to the supernatural, which I'd already had some experiences anyway. But that was a very personal, just me and that thing happening. But then it leads us to where we can be in a situation like this, having a conversation about it, trying to open people's eyes, and or the people who already have their eyes open. We're just, all right, well, what was it? Just having a great conversation about it.
Right.
So good. Now,
So normally,
go ahead.
I'm not normally big on orbs, because a lot of times when you see all these videos and stuff, it's freaking dust. You can
Right.
tell it's dust, or it's a bug. But
Mm-hmm.
when you see an actual light, that's a totally different ballgame. That's more than just a bug flying. It's more than just a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
This thing's following your car,
Mm-hmm.
keeping pace with you, and it's a physical light. That's what I consider an orb. Not a lot of these things that you see on ghost hunting shows. And I might get some hate for that, but I don't care.
Right. Well, what that's going to do is it's going to you're challenging people right now to be open, but also be skeptical to those moments, so that you are more believable. If you're one of those guys that just believed everything that came at you, like you said, it takes away from your credibility. And Chris talks a lot about those guys on I forget which one it is, but he's like, they'll trip over a chair and go, a ghost, that was a ghost that pushed me over.
Right.
At one point it becomes a cartoon, and it's not anything believable.
Yeah, I'll flat out say, Ghost Adventures, you cannot get possessed on every freaking episode.
Right.
You wouldn't be alive. I'm sorry, you'd be in a mental hospital or something.
Right.
They lost a lot of credibility when they go to that point where it's possession every freaking episode. If it happens once, okay, I can see that, but not every time you walk in a freaking building.
Right.
You lost me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like when you see these people who proclaim to be one thing and they act like another. You lose their credibility. So therefore, you're closed off to anything. So when I'm having conversations with skeptics, and I'm surrounded by a lot of skeptics. I have been called by close friends, "You're a whack job. You're an absolute whack job." But I tell you what, when something really crazy happens, or they release something in the news about UFOs or something, they call the whack job, going, "What are your thoughts on this?" I'm like, "Hang on a second. Just 6 months ago, you said I was a whack job."
Yep.
Right? But
Yep.
I always try to present myself, even with these skeptics around me. I'm the one that will explain. I try to, when I do it this way. Sherlock Holmes said that when you remove all the impossible, whatever's left, no matter how improbable, is the truth, right? Well, that's the way I approach this. If I cannot explain it away, then there's got to be there might be a truth of nugget, or a nugget of truth there. So I always try to approach these things as, let me try to explain it away. And if I can't, then we got to go a little bit deeper and maybe open our minds a bit.
Right. Well, Alan, why don't you go ahead and plug your show? Because if you don't, I'm going to. But coming from Lafayette Faust sounds a lot better than John Methenkamp.
Well, look. One, I appreciate your confession earlier, but I absolve you of that sin, because there was no sin there, brother. You didn't know, and look, as you can tell, Chris and I, there's no ego in what we do. We're doing it because we love it. We want to make these connections with people, and so I'll tell you this. Like I said on your last show that I was on, Nevermore Hollows, we want to create spooky stories, horror stories, creepypastas, whatever you want to call them, that are unlike anything you're going to hear anywhere else. If we can't tell a story in a new way, or come up with a new monster, or just be engaging, then we're not going to do it, because time is the most precious thing you've got. And if you're going to spend 30 minutes to an hour listening to one of our shows, we want you to come away with it going, well, whether I liked it or not, it was a unique experience. So check us out, Nevermore Hollows. And I got to say this. Go ahead.
I checked that entire yard and I can't find a single dog turd. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I love it. I appreciate it. I got to tell you this. I'll end on this, okay? as you can tell, so you've been almost through the whole yard, right? All
Yes.
the characters, Chris and I were trying to figure out how did we describe what we do. Well, we came up on this the other day. It's Southern redneck gothic horror. so right,
That's
it's redneck
perfect.
gothic horror,
It's
and
perfect.
because we're Southern redneck dudes, right? And when I met you up in Ada, Ohio, I was like, I don't know who that freaking guy is, but he is a Nevermore Hollows character if I've ever met one. So one of the ways that I'm trying to say thank you for what you're doing for us, I'm trying to share your stuff with people that I know and care about and who I think would like your humor. But and I don't do this for everybody. I've done it for two other folks, but I'm doing it for you. There is going to be a story where John Cougar Hunter Methenkamp comes to Nevermore Hollows and has a crazy adventure.
I can't wait. I can't wait. And I appreciate it. You don't know how much when you told me that, like that was my day. I mean, that's freaking awesome.
Good. Well, it'll be after the first of the year, but I've got one now with the drunken cryptids guy, Matthew Orton. He has become a brother to me and Chris. I mean, he has, just like you. I don't feel like you're just some dude I'm talking to. I literally feel like I'm talking to a close friend, a brother, and that's how Matthew is. Matthew's that kind of guy. So, he just became within 3 months, the three of us, me and Chris and Matthew, have become so close, and I just wanted to honor him and what he's done for my show as well by writing a story about him. So probably the next story that drops is going to be set in his tavern that opens up on Main Street in Nevermore Hollows, and I'm hoping that he enjoys it. But I've got a special story in mind for you too, because you're the perfect character to have in this universe, and I can't wait to get it written and recorded. And Chris is probably going to do your voice. I'm going to let Chris do your voice.
That's perfect. Just don't put me in trailer 66, please.
No, that's a bad trailer. Nobody wants to be in trailer 66, brother. Well, look, I appreciate you, brother. I do.
I appreciate everything. I appreciate our conversations. Literally, I think my wife thinks we're having an affair because I text you more than I text her. But
yeah, same here. My wife is like, "Who you texting?" I'm like, she knows now it's either you, Chris, or Matthew. Those are the three people I'm saying.
All right, buddy. I know it's past your bedtime.
Yeah, my Geritol is kicked in. I got to get some naps in.
Right.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you.
I will talk to you later, and everybody check out Nevermore Hollows. I cannot praise that show enough. It is fresh. It's different. It's not your normal podcast, like even what I'm doing here. There is a little bit. There's a couple episodes that are kind of like that, but it's like listening to an audiobook, but it's better. It's better because it's little bite-sized stories that all fit together, and you don't even have to listen to them in order. That's what I really like about it. Oh, Alan left. Geritol kicked in. But that was Alan, Nevermore Hollows. Check him out.